Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to the vast and ominous comic book vault. It's time once again for new acquisitions. This week I've got 6 brand new books for you. Just one DC book, the rest of it's Marvel, and I want to start off with DC, and let's jump right into it with Green Arrow, number 17. This is a book I have been eagerly anticipating for quite a while now, after all the critical acclaim that Jeff Lemire was getting for Animal Man, and I read the first issue of that and didn't really care for the art style and just didn't really give it a chance beyond that. Perhaps I should have, because a lot of people I trust said it was really quite good, and I don't know where it went and if it stayed really good, but I did read the first issue, the first couple issues actually, of Frankenstein Agent of Shade, which I think he also wrote, and anyway, he's known very much for his kind of moody stories, and this is definitely one of those. This is a book that I was really able to very easily sink my teeth into, and if you didn't know that this was going to be a new creative team, and you didn't realize that this was going to be a, quote, bold new direction for Green Arrow, which it absolutely is, treat this like Green Arrow number 1, and I would even say, having not read more than the first couple issues, because I really didn't care for it, of Green Arrow when it started in 52, treat this even like New 52 Green Arrow number 1. This is, in my mind, absolutely where this book should have started. I wish it had begun with this creative team. Andrea Sorrentino, an Italian artist that I wasn't familiar with, did a little bit of research on. His art in this is absolutely breathtaking to me. I'm quite impressed with the artistry of this book. This is, the best way I can put it, an understated looking book that begins in almost overstated sort of way story-wise. The juxtaposition is really intriguing to me. This story opens right in the middle of things, very in medias res, and of course, what you end up with when that happens a lot of times is that you have to begin in a place and then flash back to things and then come back to the present. That kind of nonlinear storytelling can sometimes be jarring, sometimes it can seem a little bit unnecessary. Here I think it works quite well. Green Arrow has lost his company, and he's yelling at the man that his father left the company to until Oliver was ready to take it. And he tries to take Oliver down a peg and say, look, we lost the company because I've been trying so hard to get you to grow up by giving you this other subsidiary of the company. That didn't work. You've kind of stayed a child, and all of my focus has been so hard on you that my eye wasn't on the ball. We've now lost our company. It turns out that someone is actually systematically going after every aspect of Oliver's life, knows that he's Green Arrow, and what happens at the end of the issue is the most terrifying thing that you could imagine to happen to Green Arrow. And I really like that Jeff Lemire is working so hard at making a good case for starting Oliver over back in this young place in his life. Of course, I'm used to an older Green Arrow. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, Green Arrow things, of course, is Longbow Hunters. I really like that older, more seasoned Green Arrow, who's been around a long time. He's a little bit tortured, that kind of thing. This is an Oliver that's getting to that place, who's learning that the world is a scarier place than he thought it was, even though he went through those terrible things on the island. He still has a lot to learn, and by the end of this, and I don't feel like I'm giving anything away because this was kind of in all the solicitations, everything ties back into the island, and this is very much going to factor in his origin as becoming Green Arrow into his future. This might feel like territory we've been through before a little bit with Green Arrow, but I'm really trusting this team to take it in a new and interesting direction, and it's just very good storytelling, really interesting panel layouts, a lot of these like small panels inside of larger things. I could do a whole 10 or 15 minute video on just this first issue, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. I really wholeheartedly heartily recommend this. I think it's absolutely fabulous. Next up, let's go over to Marvel and start with Daredevil End of Days, number 5 of 8. Once again, we are continuing to get more and more information finally about that last word that Daredevil apparently said, or that Daredevil did say when he died to Bullseye, that apparently, as we learned last issue, drove Bullseye insane, and we get the feeling that Matt Murdock knew that was going to happen. That word was Maypone, and the one person who seems to know something about it is none other than the Punisher, who was revealed at the end of last issue. And here, the Punisher tells Ben Urich that he knows what Maypone means, but he won't tell him exactly what, only that Daredevil knew what was going to happen when he said that word. And I think the most important information we get here out of all of that is that that word had to have been spoken just before, or just as Matt was dying in order for this to happen. This is becoming more and more intriguing, and I'd love to say that I'm pulling the pieces together as I'm getting more of them, and I still have no clue where this is going. We've got 3 issues left. It's an absolute rousing mystery, and I really love how Bendis is really playing around in the superhero universe in this more kind of realistic version of it, with what the real rough, gritty world that we live in would be like if there were, costume superheroes running around. And he has this kind of fun take with it where there's this ex kind of B-list villain who, and I won't tell you who it is, but there's this ex B-list villain who now has kind of leveled out, and he's not crazy anymore, and he runs his own store selling costumes based on superheroes and supervillains, and capitalizing on all of this, rather. And he was a villain of Daredevil's, and Daredevil, because he knew Daredevil, is the one costume that he won't make. Except that it turns out that he did make one, and it was apparently for Matt Murdock himself, and that plays into this in a really interesting way that I won't give away. Once again, another great cliffhanger. This book continues to be absolutely riveting, and because we've got our protagonist in Ben Urich here, it's nice that at the end of this we've got something that actually happens that's very that's very scary for our protagonist himself. He's finally placed in some kind of danger, and I'm really glad to see that. Let's jump over now to All New X-Men number 7. So I really wasn't expecting Mystique to pop up in this when she did at the end of last issue. I was really excited to see what was going to happen with that. And Mystique here shows up to the original Cyclops, who goes to a bank to open up a box that his older self has apparently put there, and to learn more things about his life. One of the big things that he learns from that box is, I'll just say, more about his relationship with Jean Grey, and that is obviously going to really start factoring in next issue. So Mystique shows up to him there and starts trying to kind of manipulate him for some unknown plan that we don't know anything about. What I really like is that for a while there, it looks very much like she is telling him all of the truth, and I found myself starting to wonder whose side is Mystique on at this point. And then she kind of shows her true colors, and I won't say exactly how, but I really enjoy the long conversation she has with Cyclops, and I love how Bendis is able to keep me invested in these long conversations with not a whole lot of action. There's really not very much action in this issue at all, hardly any, and I enjoyed it just as much as I have all the others. And I said that I thought last issue was a little bit weak. This one absolutely made up for it, and I think that last issue had to kind of position us into some places for the series to continue. Now we've been positioned, and the pacing is in a much better place. One thing I really like about the layout of this particular issue is that Mystique very often, when we see her in the first few pages here, will change form between pages, and you don't always know what she's going to look like when you turn the page, and it's I think intentionally jarring for a second, where you turn the page and you go, oh, and now she looks like this person, and and now she looks like this person, and I thought that was a really clever way to do her shape-shifting, to never actually try to show her shape-shifting, just and in the next panel, she's this character. Not that I've never seen that before, but I kind of enjoyed how it was, over a page turn. I'm really finding Wolverine's relationship with the original Cyclops very, very interesting and engaging as well, and he's trying really hard to try to have a little bit of perspective. This is not the man who killed Charles Xavier. He's going to grow up and become that man unless, the X-Men find some way to help him not do that. But of course, that would change time. And if they send him back, and there really is kind of more and more questioning, and I'm glad Bendis is finally going there, of whether or not the X-Men, what exactly Beast's purpose was for doing this, and do the X-Men really want to change time and the timeline and change where they are right now? It's a really good question. What really was the point of doing this beyond, of course, the out of the fourth wall business of just, wouldn't it be interesting, of putting all these characters together? Bendis is really starting to attack that territory, and yes, it's issue 7. We've been here for a little while, and yes, Bendis has a tendency to decompress a little bit. Here, I think that has been absolutely necessary. I'm really glad that he's given these characters the time that they need to breathe. I feel like all of these people are becoming more and more alive as this goes along, and I'm not the kind of person that has to read X-Men all the time. This is a book I feel like I've really got to keep on my pull list. I'm really, really, really enjoying this more and more every issue, and this is all relationship stuff, and really good relationship stuff. In a way, it's kind of going back to the root of what made X-Men, or at least my favorite X-Men stories, and it's kind of ironic that the way to go back to the root of that is to, for Bendis anyway, is to mix current X-Men with old X-Men. It's really interesting. And next up, Superior Spider-Man number 3. I, once again, just like last time, meant to take this off my pull list, and it came out 2 weeks in a row, so I ended up buying it again. And like last time, I had been a little bit on the fence about whether or not I wanted to keep reading this just for the sake of reviewing it. I really think I'm definitely dropping it after this issue. Frankly, I was dropping it after 2, but it didn't get off my pull list in time, so I ended up buying it again. And honestly, it doesn't look like this is going to last as long as a lot of people thought it was going to. I was a little bit suspicious about this at the beginning myself, and we've got solicitations for 9 and 10 out now that are making it look more and more like it's actually going to be over fairly soon, and that this was, I'm sorry to say, kind of just a big cash grab. I feel like they tried really hard to make everybody think that this was the new status quo for Spider-Man, that it was going to be like this for a while. And when we got Ghost Peter on Doc Ock's shoulder at the end of the first issue, I knew this couldn't last very long. I mean, like, once you put Ghost Peter in there, this easily could have been just 3 or 4 issues. Kind of a fun little novelty story of Doc Ock. Well, and it wouldn't even have to be a novelty story. You could do character stuff with it, but just, a short little 3, 4, 5 issue arc of Doc Ock takes over Peter Parker's body. Okay. They're stretching it out for a few more issues than that, just to treat it like a new status quo for a while, but ultimately, this is not going to be where we're going to be by this time next year, and I think it's kind of a shame that they duped so many people into thinking that this was going to last, because not just because there are people buying it who otherwise probably wouldn't have, and that's irritating, but more so the people who actually bought into Peter Parker is dead because they didn't read past 700, and fair enough, but I mean, like people who bought into that, and then it made them so mad because they thought, I mean, there's a letter at the back of this that's somebody that's been reading Spider-Man for 35, 40 years that quit all of Marvel over this, and was like, now Marvel isn't what it used to be. You've got the bad guys winning and taking over the superheroes' bodies and all that kind of thing, and I just think it's sad that people like that got duped into it and thinking that Spider-Man will, because of this, forever or for a long time, not be who he used to be. Guys, this was just here to sell some comic books, and it's a little bit fun. There's some kind of fun ideas in it, but ultimately, it's just here to get us to buy books and nothing more. And so anyway, I really don't want to keep supporting it because of that. Having said that, I like the art in this book. Ryan Stegman. I like him better than some of the artists we were getting in Amazing, and it's a little bit cartoony, but the action is really great, and I love the panel layouts. So in this one, we've got Carly Cooper kind of figuring out that Spider-Man is Dr. Octopus, and of course she's figuring that out because she saw Peter Parker in Doc Ock's body say, "Hey, I'm Peter Parker." And Dan Slott's treating this like a big, giant revelation, and I find that kind of irritating because, of course she's figuring it out. As soon as Peter Parker starts, talking like Dr. Octopus, she's going to kind of put it together because, if it were me and I had seen Doc Ock say, "I'm Peter Parker," that would stick with me a little bit, And so he keeps showing us the flashback, like we'll forget it. I feel like he's not giving the readers, quite enough credit. And what irritates me more than anything about the whole Carly Cooper thing is that she's figuring it out just because she had that moment, not because she's smarter than anybody else, not because she's a cop and a detective and it's a character thing. No, it's a plot thing, and somebody's got to figure it out, so it's her. And it really should have been Mary Jane, because Mary Jane spent the most time with him since he became Dr. Octopus. And she hasn't even begun to latch onto it at all, and that was really irritating. And so, anyway, we've got Doc Ock going up against the Vulture, and I do like this idea. This is one thing I really liked about this. I do like the idea that the Vulture does something that Doc Ock finds so morally reprehensible that he goes crazy on the Vulture and kind of shows his true colors a little bit. And I think I like the idea that Doc Ock, as much of a madman as he is, there are still lines that even he wouldn't cross. Now, I won't give away exactly what it is and why. We get a little bit more about his past, or really stuff that we've seen already, and it's maybe a little bit typical. Okay, it's very typical, but I still really like that idea that there's this line that the Vulture crosses that Doc Ock wouldn't, and it kind of pushes him over the edge a little bit. So I don't know. I'm not going to begrudge anybody reading this for kind of the fun novelty of it, but when stuff like this happens, if it's not in the ultimate continuity where you can do really anything you want to, where Peter Parker's dead, he's probably going to stay dead. I really would encourage people not to get to get roped into something or to get duped by something like this in thinking that this is the way it's going to stay forever, because things like this usually are just done for shock factor, and they're over after a while. So a lot of people, I think, are smartly just kind of waiting this out until Peter Parker's back in the costume again, and he will be soon. So there you go. Let me finish up quickly with my last two. This is Venom number 31 by Cullen Bunn, and more great art by Shavley. So we've got Flash Thompson moving to Philadelphia, and he's going there to try to kind of start a new life and really hunker down and become a superhero. The Avengers trust him now with the Venom symbiote to go off and just be a superhero. And one of the things I find really fun that Cullen Bunn does is he kind of takes us through a nightly patrol with Venom through this new city. And one reason that he likes being in Philadelphia is that he feels like he can do more good and that he's more relevant because there aren't all these superheroes all over Philadelphia like there are in New York, and I thought that was kind of fun. And he also talks. He's just really really plain spoken and really human, and I always like that about Flash Thompson. Patrolling is really boring. You're just sitting around waiting for something terrible to happen, and then you feel kind of weird about it because you hope something awful will happen because that's the only way that you can even kind of enjoy it. It's this bizarre catch-22. Well, you don't want bad stuff to happen to people, but then if something does and I can stop it, A, I'm important, I'm relevant, and B, I'm doing something. And I really enjoyed that. We saw the return of Toxin at the end of the previous issue. I had my suspicions about who exactly Toxin was. That is who it turns out to be, and it's a little obvious, but it's fine with me because I wanted to see where that person was. If you know very much about symbiotes and Venom and stuff, you can kind of guess who it's going to be, and it's going to be really fun to see where that goes because he's out looking for Flash Thompson in New York. Of course, I'm sure he's going to find him and go to Philadelphia, but most of this is about Flash starting a new life, being alone, and in some ways being in the best place he's been in a while, and yet he doesn't have any friends here. He's not clicking with anybody, with any of his neighbors or anything. And then one of the neighbors that he really doesn't get along with, and who seems like a pretty despicable person, something bad happens to him at the end, and so there's kind of a mystery there. And anyway, we're kind of back to I like that Cullen's getting a little bit away from some of the occult stuff that he loves so much, and I mean he writes that stuff well, but this is more what I want from Venom, more of this kind of more low-key, really human kind of storytelling. I'm having more fun with Flash Thompson when he's just dealing with regular life stuff, and it's kind of interesting. A little splash of action here and there, but he's doing a really great job with that right now. And with the Toxin thing at the end of last issue, I really expected this was just going to be another big, giant action issue, and it's not. It's all really down to earth. It's Flash talking to his mother before he leaves, and trying to get Betty on the phone, and hanging out with Peter Parker one more time before he leaves, and all of that kind of stuff. And once again, like with all new X-Men, we've got almost no action in this issue, and I found it kind of more fun to read and kind of refreshing over the big giant action stuff this week. And finally, speaking of Venom, we've got Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 20. Once again, we've got more Bendis, and this is Venom War. Now, I'm assuming that this is going to be another long kind of event thing, and I don't know if this Venom War thing is just in Spider-Man or if Venom's going to deal with anybody else, any other place in Ultimate. But it's got this banner, it's Venom War, and here... This is probably the best issue of this series I've read in a while, besides that point one a while back that I really liked. And speaking of that point one, so you had Betty Brant, who was killed by Venom because he was trying to get information on who the new Spider-Man was, and she thought she knew. She thought that it was Miles's father, and so he goes after Miles's father, and Miles has to fight him. This is one big, giant action issue, but given that the stakes are so high, and that it's personal stakes, it's really riveting and really fun to read, and it's very gripping. And you've got this great moment where Miles realizes that the last Spider-Man, Peter Parker, also fought somebody that he could barely match right in front of his own home, and he's realizing how bad of an idea that is, and that he's got to try to get him away from his home. But in the meantime, his dad gets hurt, and so we've really got to question what's going to happen there. And this is very much about, is it even worth being a superhero when your family gets in the way? Somebody at one point even questions, do we really need another Spider-Man? And the answer is, it's hard to tell. As much as I love Miles Morales and as hard as he's working, is he really doing enough good to, and it's a classic question with superheroes, is he doing enough good versus what's happening with his family when they get in the way, is a great issue. So now let's jump over to Dan Torrey, who's going to talk about a few books that I didn't read.
Hi everybody, and welcome once again to Things Captain Logan Doesn't Read. I am your host, Dan, and today I'm going to be reviewing for you two books that Captain Logan didn't read that I happen to. And today, the first book we're going to be taking a look at is one of the 2 Marvel books I have for you, and it's New Avengers number 3. This one is, of course, by Jonathan Hickman, with art by Steve Epting, and I think this book is just getting better and better with every issue. I like this book in comparison to the other Avengers title that Hickman's also working on. I like this one much, much more. This one's been much more of a character-driven story, especially with this issue, than the first 3 issues of the main Avengers book, which is all I've read of it so far. But plot-wise, this issue served as Hank McCoy's introduction to the team, since he's taking Professor Xavier's seat on the Illuminati. But it's also a great character study that examines the ethics of the various members of this team and how they're able to justify being part of this clandestine group of secret rulers. We get people like Reed Richards saying that he's willing to sacrifice everything, even his own soul, in an effort to protect his family from having to make the tough choices and compromises that come with living in today's world and doing what must be done to save today's world. He is, in his mind, essentially trying to be a good father, but in striving to be that, he has to do some terrible things, which is an interesting place to take Reed's character, and Hickman makes them all so desperate that they get to the point where they are willing to do anything here, except for one of them, and it's really interesting to see them all get to that point. And with that, I think Hickman's sort of hinting at a larger question that, I mean, are there truly good men in this world, or are there just bad men on different sides, and one of them just happens to be the loser? I think that's a really interesting, large question to ask, and Hickman loves asking big questions like that. I'm just glad that he's asking more human questions in this. That's the sort of big questions I latch onto personally, like the nature of humanity, things like that. So I'm really enjoying it for that, and there's a major plot twist towards the middle of this issue involving the Infinity Gems that were revealed last issue as the object of desire for this team. And I didn't see it coming at all. It's really unexpected what happens here. It keeps it exciting. And that device was used to sort of put all of the members of this team at each other's throats and bring up the ethical issues that Hickman focuses on with all the characters. He talks, of course, as well about how wielding that kind of power comes with a price in relation to the Infinity Gems. And it was very interesting to see who was chosen to wield that power. And he ends up being the one who personally has some reservation about using a weapon of that magnitude. And it's interesting to see what the Illuminati end up doing about him when he's alone and questioning their moral reprehensibility. Really thought-provoking book, really well-written book, great character study. I'd highly recommend this. This and the Uncanny Avengers book are my 2 favorite Avengers books right now, and of all of them, those are the 2 I'd recommend. Really liking this one. All right, so now we're going to go over to The Fearless Defenders, number 1. This one is written by Cullen Bunn with art by Will Sliney, and this was a book I was initially not interested in at all. Misty Knight and Valkyrie are characters that I've read in some places and enjoyed, but I've never really latched onto them enough to make me buy a book just because they're the stars. But in a podcast recently, Cullen Bunn had pitched the series to me and Captain Logan, and talked a little bit how Doctor Strange might show up eventually in this book, and that's one of the other reservations I had about it, was doing a Defenders book without Strange or Hulk. Those are my 2 favorite members, and seeing a Defenders book without them wouldn't have interested me immediately. But I have to say, I found this pretty enjoyable. I thought I got my money's worth. Bunn does a really interesting thing with this book in that, like the previous incarnations of the Defenders we've seen, he's beginning to assemble a team of people that, even more so than the teams like the Avengers and the X-Men, they don't really have any business working together. They come from vastly different worlds, with Valkyrie coming from the Asgardian sect of the Marvel Universe, which is a world of high fantasy blended with science fiction. Misty Knight's this sort of freelance secret agent coming from a world of espionage, and there's this third character who's introduced here, and she's compared to Indiana Jones because she's an archaeologist and is always hunting artifacts. Bunn was smart in not only taking these characters out of their respective worlds and smashing the characters together, but he also smashes their worlds and the genres in which these characters' stories exist within together. This book it plot-wise is like if you were to take a blender to Indiana Jones, Thor, and James Bond. We've got an artifact plot, a shadowy villain who controls a militarized group of thugs and wants to rule the world, with some Asgardian mythos stuff and zombie Viking warriors thrown into the mix for good measure. It gives all the characters here a nice stake in the plot and will most likely make them all feel useful and necessary in combating this threat in upcoming issues. I thought Bunn's approach to mashing the genres together here was really interesting. The introductions we get here for the various characters work pretty well by giving us small scenes with them by themselves before we get to, them together in the same situation. You get a good sense of how Valkyrie and Knight view their professions and themselves in general as they go about, getting to the same place. Overall, I really enjoyed this one, and I'd highly recommend it if you're looking for a good Marvel superhero book that's female-led. This is, of the new female books, this is one of the only ones I've checked out, of Marvel now anyway. I read the first couple issues of Captain Marvel, and that was great. And Marvel looks like they're turning it around, doing some cool female stuff. So if you want to check that out, this is one of the books you might want to take a look at. All right, so that's all I have to say about the books this week. I hope you guys enjoyed my reviews, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot, Dan, and thanks to you for watching. If you ever want to send anything for me or Vince to review on the Comic Book Vault, you can always send those to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. And I'll be back with you again next week, me and Dan both, with more brand new comic book reviews. And thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.